Hi, I'm Craig Herndon. I'm from Boston Virtual Reality.
And I'm Neil Gupta from Boston Augmented Reality.
And you're listening to the Virtuality podcast. So for our next segment, we're going to move over towards healthcare in VR and AR and how that can benefit people medically and not just, for fun or games, to where you think of it not as a toy or, a distraction, but more as a tool for rehabilitation and staying well, staying fit. There's so many applications. And Neil, I think you can speak more to what's going on in the augmented reality space in healthcare.
Sure. I think across both VR and AR, just like you said, there's obviously a lot of potential for entertainment and different kinds of content from Hollywood, things like that. But there's so much that can be done in the healthcare space and so many dimensions to that, right? So, just anecdotally, right, I'll say that one of the first ones I saw was when we did the HoloLens hackathon last year. One of the teams built an application that was designed for children who were doing extended stays in the hospital because they realized the hospital is designed for doctors and nurses and not for patients. It's not designed for the patient experience, but your experience as a patient can really be a huge component in your well-being and in your process of getting better. So they made a game where kids could sort of be fighting these monsters that represented their own sicknesses and diseases, and gave them this sort of a little bit of sense of agency, like they were fighting their own diseases, but it was also just something for them to do. And you've seen things that came out of Washington's HIT Lab, where they were using games, VR games, to help kids and people as they were going through repairs for burn treatments that are notoriously painful, and they were seeing massive reductions in the amount of pain people were experiencing. So, those are just a couple of examples. You can distract people, you can engage people to remove pain.
Right.
And then within healthcare, there's a whole series of other ways to use VR and AR, right? There's Oso VR is a company that started here in Boston and has moved to the Bay Area that is using VR to help surgeons learn surgical procedures and try out new medical instruments, which I think is pretty cool. You've got Brain Power here in Boston that's using augmented reality to help children with autism better understand the expressions and emotions of the people that they're interacting with. So, those are just a couple of examples. There's just so many ways across the board that these technologies can affect healthcare, let alone, telepresence and whatnot.
And we also in Boston, we have Luminopia. They're working on ocular disorders. So one would be like, your eye doesn't sync up with your other eye is one disorder. And right now what they do for that is they'll give you an eye patch that you put over your eye and you'll watch a movie. And what they see there is around like 20% effectiveness rates for any kind of improvement at all. And what Luminopia is doing is now you're putting someone in virtual reality to where you can show both eyes something different. So you can have an object in this virtual space that both eyes are seeing, and one object can be visible to only one eye. So that eye is now being forced to actually focus on the movement that's going and not just relying on that stronger eye to do the work. It's almost like a little bit of right hand, left hand. You might focus on your right hand to do more of the pushing. So this is kind of thing you could have like a stronger eye, and now you're just kind of using virtual reality to make that muscle a little bit stronger. And what they found is that now they're getting up to 48% effectiveness, which is unheard of right now. And but right now they can only say it may help because they're still going through FDA approval. So we'll see how that happens. And this kind of leads us into our next interview, where we have Julia and Josh Dobbelaar, who actually have a really impactful story that when I heard about it, it just really hit me emotionally, as VR really is changing the world. It's making a difference in people's lives already. And I thought that right now VR was kind of in the early phase where most people just think of it as just video games. Media and entertainment is where consumers are interacting with it right now. But Julia, your story actually is counter to that. So if you want to go into that.
About a year and a half ago, I suffered a fall that created a tear in my labrum, which is a gasket to your hip that does not repair. And they told me I had connective tissue disorder, gave me handicap parking, I had severe pain, severe spasms. I got a motorized bed. I had a walker, a cane on good days. And I took painkillers and tons of ibuprofen and did all the physical therapy and ultrasound treatments, and it really wasn't getting better. My family went away on vacation, and I stayed behind because I couldn't travel. I couldn't sit in a chair without excruciating pain. And my son was asking for the VR, and we saw it as a toy. We didn't want to spend the money. And then he convinced me that I might actually really love it because I used to love to dance, like so much. I loved to dance. My 40th birthday was supposed to be a gymnastics birthday party because I was that capable.
Right.
And all the girls had one. So I had a lot of physical strength, and I traveled so much as a kid. And now I was confined to home and really to a reclining position because seated was so painful. When I tried out Job Simulator, my son had me try out Job Simulator, and I was reaching to get an ice cream cone out of a freezer. My head went cold.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's so impressive that I can change my physical sensations by that. I wonder if I go over to where you grill the hot dogs, if I put my head there, will I heat up? And I didn't, because my brain doesn't expect that.
Right.
So I found myself thinking maybe I could help with the pain. And what other ways might it be able to help?
Right.
And while I was in there, I was experiencing less pain because I was, there's distance between the pain and my mind. And that gave me space to, one, be without it, and two, also start to incorporate the physical therapy, the exercises that I needed to do that I would generally just do in front of the TV. And that just wasn't distracting enough at all. And I couldn't get past the pain. So I was never doing enough of the very small leg exercises that I was supposed to be doing. When I went into virtual reality, I was able to do it. And I got stronger and stronger. My vision, the strabismus in my eyes, has changed 4 times since I've had virtual reality in our lives.
Oh, wow.
I'm not wearing glasses today. 2 weeks ago I was, and the eye doctor can't quite figure out why.
Wow. That's mind blown.
I mean, they were telling me, is nystagmus, so it's a tremor of one of the eyes. And I've been strengthening the muscle using VR, and so my 2 eyes are steady now.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's absolutely amazing.
It's expensive, but amazing. My glasses.
Right.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But
when you think about how much LASIK costs, or you think about, how much people value having better vision, it's expensive, but it's worth it.
Right. Well, I had cataracts, even though you can't see on the podcast, but I am only 45, but I had cataracts in both eyes. So I've had a number of ailments throughout the years, from surgeries, chemotherapy, then chronic pain, which is what brought me to virtual reality and where I first noticed how helpful it could be, to visual disturbances where my eye does, it's called ocular toric rotation. And because I was having problems with walking, it then became a vestibular issue, which brings your vision, your sense of balance into question. And my balance was getting worse and worse, and the pain was getting worse and worse. And virtual reality is the reason why I can walk. I truly believe that, and not be on painkillers and not ibuprofen.
Wow.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. And so for a while, when you initially had the injury, you were bedridden,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And so now through VR, so now because of VR, you can walk again.
I can sit in a chair without pain. Yes.
Yes.
I can walk. I can sit upright.
Right.
So we have to start with that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It took a bit more than just it wasn't overnight. So.
It was pretty quick when I started, though.
Oh, okay.
I have to say, because I gave up on going to physical therapy as I was Ubering everywhere.
Right.
And I would go to physical therapy and PT and OT and the chiropractor. And I was just a chronic patient and in constant pain and being given pain medication from something that's tramadol. I guess it's like an opiate. 2,400 milligrams every day of ibuprofen, as well as large doses of something that's called gabapentin, which is supposed to deal with nerve pain, block pain. And I still wasn't getting better, so
Right.
I was actually getting worse. And we tried me in VR, and it was spectacular.
And you said it was just your son just mentioned it to you offhand that brought you to VR?
It was last year, and he showed me a clip from some YouTuber that he liked that was doing tilt brush.
Right.
And was saying, Mom, I really want this. Please, can I have it? And Josh and I, we as parents, we weren't super thrilled to invest more in screen time
Right.
when we spent, our co-parenting trying to figure out other things to do.
Yep.
So we looked at it and said, well, for a toy, no. And he began to get some friends together, and they were going to pool money to go and get it. And he kept trying to convince me and Josh that we would love it, And I'd gone through that with I was Wii fit for about 4 seconds.
Okay, right.
Any of that stuff, I had to be interested in the game first, I think, of the Xboxes and the Wiis or something.
Yep.
And then as a product of that, I would get, a little sweat on.
Right.
This, I went into Job Simulator, I think was the very first one. And it just felt great to be, one, out of bed, even though I was in a chair. One, out of bed and just reaching for things. And, I had to pretend I was working in a convenience store. And to be honest, they come up and someone order, Twizzlers and something to drink. And I try to serve it. And I found it just more fun to just throw everything all over the place. I just kept trashing everything.
Right.
And I was, what are you doing? And I said, no, this is great and fun. But when I got a taste of it, I saw how immersive it was and how distracting. It's beyond distracting. It fools you.
Right.
It tricks your brain.
And so, this is coming from someone who is very averse to, video games, computers. Yeah, it never really was your thing.
No.
So what do you think, about virtual reality made it so easy for you to get into and get it?
I think I always, imagine you go to virtual reality to go above and beyond experiences you could never have. And what I found there to start was, it depends where your limit for experiences.
Right.
So I had been very active. I used to dance. I've traveled all over the world. I've, gone on fast roller coasters and all of that. But what I couldn't do any longer was, the only joy I got, honestly, was watching The Price is Right. And the people's enthusiasms would get me, excited enough to feel a little bit better and do some exercises.
Right.
When I went into virtual reality, I noticed that it took me to places I had been before, no longer could go to, which is a feeling of dancing, feeling of transporting across the room to go look at something more closely without physically having to move. Brought me to outdoor spaces when I couldn't leave the house. It brought me to daytime when it was night.
Right.
Through.
Wow.
And I would lay in the living room and I'd put the headset on and look up and see bright skies and birds going by and think, wow, I wish, this is the best virtual Prozac in the world.
So the listeners can't see this, but just the look on Josh's face as she gets excited about VR and talks about how, it's helped you. So I assume, Josh, let's get a little bit of your point of view on all of this. I mean, it's had to be like soul crushing to watch someone you love go through something like this. But then to see the new technology that you thought at first was like a game focused thing, they weren't too sure whether or not you should adopt. What's your view on all of this?
It has been tremendous, and when we first got the system, I thought Julia's interest was just for something to do that wasn't lying on the bed and watching television. It was just she was dying for something to engage her because she's a very smart and active person, and suddenly she couldn't really be active. It was hard for her to engage. And suddenly she was having interesting experiences, and I'd come home from work and she'd tell me how she's been in the mountains in Iceland and in a plaza in Italy, and there was enthusiasm coming out of her and excitement, and those were the first days. And then soon it became her telling me how she was able to do her exercises where she wasn't really able to do them before. She was able to get in that space and start moving her legs around and feel like she was really making progress at the same time as being stimulated and being put in these sunny spaces, which were so beneficial for you. They really were like illuminating for you.
I'm so grateful.
It was wonderful. That was entirely unexpected.
Right.
That's not why we bought the system.
Right.
Yeah, we would have got a lot earlier if we knew that.
Right. And which headset do you guys have?
We have the Vive.
Okay. Very nice.
Our son had bought a gaming computer.
Julie,
Yes?
what experiences do you like to play? Or do you like to, experience?
Well, I don't play. It's not a game.
So you're not a typical user, you would say?
I'm not a typical user.
Okay.
And
So what would you call it? It's interesting, right? Because we have to come up with sort of new terminology.
I'm a
these days.
patient.
So how would you...
I'm a patient.
You're a
I'm
patient.
recovering. I'm somebody who got well using technology.
Right.
And maintain my wellness through this form of physical activity. So Audio Shield is
Yep.
my mainstay. That's the one I use the most. I love music. I don't know if I have to describe to the audience what it is, but how would you describe it?
You're standing on a virtual stage in a giant stadium, and you choose music that's basically available pretty much whatever you can find in YouTube, and the soundtrack plays, and somehow the system coordinates between the music that's playing that you've chosen. It starts sending these glowing spheres towards you. You see them starting drifting off in a distance, and they come closer and closer toward you. And on your left hand, you have a blue shield, and your right hand, you have an orange shield, and these balls match those colors. And as they come at you, you're supposed to punch them. And so it kind of causes you to reach out and move your body around to engage in these objects that are coming toward you. And they're coming in matched with the rhythm, so it ends up making you dance effectively. And it can be very entertaining and very energetic. And you got quite a kick out of it. I have videos of you doing it with Gloria Estefan and Michael Jackson and other energetic stuff. You had a blast.
Yeah, and that's one thing. You're not the only one to recently benefit from it. So I think it was Space Pirate Trainer, but there was an upload article about a person who actually worked for Telltale Games that lost 50 pounds doing VR. And he had a daily focus regimen that he would do, and I think Space Pirate Trainer was in there.
No, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That's a gamer's game, I think.
Yeah.
The Audio Shield would start as the ultimate chair dancing.
Yes.
Sitting in the chair and just moving with my arms.
Right. And how has the physical limitations of what you've gone through affected just you mentally and physically?
Wow. Mentally, well, let's start with physically.
Okay. Yep, that's the easier one.
Yeah, that's the easy one because the mentally goes, also into Josh's experience and my son's experience and the way it just takes over the family when you can't get out of bed, really, and you can't drive. I was basically in between many operations and in the chronic pain. So back in the summer, as I was saying earlier, I had gone through different stages of vision. Well, so I had cataracts, and I had one eye fixed. So I could still do virtual reality and experience it in that way. Then got one eye fixed, and I was like, wow, it's even crisper. You know?
Right.
So physically, it gave my brain something interesting and exciting and distract to such an extent that I didn't feel I was anywhere but in this neon stadium, you know, punching glows, orbs,
Right.
feeling powerful and not doing any impact onto my body and my legs, and working on the focus of my eyes rather than what the eye doctor had said, you know, stare at a particular picture and,
Right.
you know. So I'm doing eye exercises, dancing, and being scored. You can, right? You can be scored. Is that how it works, Josh?
Sure.
By the song, internationally. Anyone out there want to try Toto? Rains in Africa. I'm R2 Pentu.
Awesome. So this is kind of getting into the next question of what do you think for people with disabilities, you know, how does this medium benefit them?
Mm-hmm. I believe it can bring back a lot of things that they didn't have before. Adventure, laughter, feeling like you're just another place when you can't. So for somebody who might use it as a game to experience what is inaccessible to a human being, you know, if you're disabled in some ways, what's accessible may be sunshine. You know.
Right.
So it provides me that. It provided me an entire club feeling to be dancing in, an experience that I was working. As silly as it might seem, that I was excited when that little job simulator came up and asked me, you know, ring up Twizzlers and whatnot, because I was completely unemployable.
Right.
So I had no worth.
Right.
In my mind. And it was a great friend in that way.
Yep.
I think there's the physical pain and that challenge that it distracts me and pulled me away from that. And then the emotional pain that it really helped with. And the two together was what made the best medicine of it all.
You got really excited and wanted to take this to everybody. You were talking almost constantly about how can we put this in a transportable format? What are the parts we need? Like, can we take this to therapist's office and show them how to use it to help people who have phobias, give them exposure therapy? Can we take it to people who are bedridden or for whatever reason can't be mobile and go places and give them a sense of mobility and freedom? It's so easy. It's so accessible. All you have to do is bring them this box of technology and these little towers on the wall and these little hand grips and a headset, and you're out in the great wide world all of a sudden. And you were very enthusiastic about bringing that to people.
Right, and that's exactly what the Boston virtual reality community is out there to do, is we want to bring virtual reality to the general public, regardless of who you are, and also make education about virtual reality something you can come to. And that's why at our events, we allow anyone to come in and demo, like what they're working on, to show other people, to get feedback. We have people from all over come and give talks, just to make that knowledge readily accessible to the general public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I challenge anybody to try it over painkillers. That's how strongly I feel about it.
Wow.
Do not take the amount of medication that I'm off is incredible.
Wow. That's it's hard to even wrap my mind around how beneficial this was for you.
It was and that's how I used to talk about it so much, and it's taken a bit of a while, but I've been talking about it, and that's why I went to Boston, the VR meetup.
Yep. Because
I wanted to be able to say, hey, you know, I know you agree, but like, how do we tell people?
Right.
Because unless my son, you know, unless it ended up right in my dining room, I probably wouldn't have had exposure to it, and I probably would have poo-pooed it as not going to help me any more than anything else.
Right. Yeah, but by having it readily accessible, it was something you're like, you know what, why not try it?
Exactly. Yeah, and I could, you know, calculate it, but within months I was off the painkillers.
Wow. So you've mentioned Job Simulator and Space Pirate Trainer. Are there other games you'd recommend for people with disabilities?
I enjoy Tilt Brush.
Oh,
Because
yep.
it's just, I'm not much of an artist, but I just love the experience of being there. It's almost like you have a big, you have an icing that you can squeeze and you can make cakes and, do icing writings all over the place and move around and go underneath it. And there's so many ways I can transport. So any of the games that use transportation where you just...
So where the locomotion is like a teleportation, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So there was one when I was at the first Boston VR that we went to. I think it's called Rail Adventure. And it was because someone had brought the Vive.
Right.
And I demoed it. And I was in... There's a walker that you use when...
Oh, yeah. They
And
were at
that has
PAX last year.
Yeah. So this was in Brookline last month. So it was a walker, and it has the chair. And I sat in the chair, and I kept saying, does anyone know where I can get the experience of a roller coaster or something?
Right.
So someone put in Rail Adventure. And I sat there, and I was so immersed, I couldn't hear what they're saying. And I just started saying, wee! Wee! Faster, faster!
Right.
And I couldn't even hear a response because I was so immersed. I'm saying, yeah,
Right.
we're getting you faster. Don't worry, Julia, you're going. And you feel like you're in this outdoor railroad in the snow, and you're looking down at the mountain, and you can see the height and the depth. And when I turned, because I'm going 50 miles an hour forwards, when I turned my head to look behind me, I really was surprised that my hair wasn't whipping me in the face.
Right, because the wind wasn't there.
The wind wasn't there.
Wow.
But the wee, like that was there. And, the excitement and the experience.
Right, you were immersed in that virtual space.
Absolutely. So it was not only, fun and the heart pounding, but it was extremely distracting. And that was that's wonderful. So Rail Adventure, Tilt Brush, Audio Shield is the very best.
Yes.
What are some? I know you guys like to play games, but those are most of the ones that I use. Oh, well, there's guided meditation,
Okay.
which I've done a couple of times. It's very nice. And I tend to use Google Earth to travel. When I had traveled so much, as I had said earlier, and I figured I could go back. So I grew up in New Jersey, so I traveled back there, and I grew up in an apartment building on the 16th floor, and I was able to go on Google Earth and go right up to my bedroom window. And I see tools for travel. Like if you're going to, you don't even have to be disabled, but if you're going to relocate somewhere and you want to lay of the land in the town,
Yep.
it's a great way to orient yourself. So I've said to my son, we'll go on Google Earth, and I'll put him somewhere in Boston, say, okay, drive home. Like this is the best driver's ed there is.
Right.
There's no app, there's nothing, and you can't crash while you're doing this, but show me you know how to get home and
Right.
use it as a tool. I've went and visited my father's cemetery, his gravesite,
Right.
on Google Earth because I couldn't go there. It's in New Jersey.
Right.
And I fully had the experience of, because the way I was able to get there, because you can't punch in an address, I
Right.
knew to get to Manhattan, get on, 95, take this exit, and as you drive there and you go, and I was just sort of hovering above it. And I was done, and I thought, wow, I really don't feel like I'm missing out by not going there.
Wow.
So that tool, the Google Earth, and just then I traveled. And I would go places like you had said, the hills in Iceland, was I? Mm-hmm. Or even outer space. It's really, really, and just sitting by the
Yeah.
rings in Saturn
Right.
and breathing. Best painkiller.
Wow.
And just more people could try it. That's all I hope
Right.
for. That's all I hope people will, find somebody who's got some limits and throw a headset on them. Just grab them and say, no, you will experience this wonderful thing.
Yeah, will start trying to do that at our meetups. We'll just get a few people to go out on the streets and kidnap people into trying VR.
Exactly. But Josh is right. I very much wanted to, bang on everybody's door and lure as many people as I could to come in to my house, and friends that I have that are therapists that work with anxiety, and I just talk about it. But it's really hard to convince somebody that it's not a toy to me.
Yeah, and so for me, it's kind of comical. I don't know why my mind went there first, but going out in the neighborhood to try and get people to come in and try it, right? It's instead of like, hey, do you want free candy? It's like, hey, do you want to try out VR?
Exactly. Hey, you with the walker. Why don't you wheel on over here?
They have VR vans in San Francisco now. It's a mobile VR experience, but it's just a van that you can get in. The back they have just a little bit of VR you can try out.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding.
That is great.
Get in the van.
Get in the back of the van and try out some VR, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to take it around. So far, my son is not willing to allow me to take take it from the house.
Right.
But that's why I've joined the community with you
Yeah,
guys.
and we're great to have you. Like last night, I'd heard a little bit about your story, and I was just kind of watching you, and I saw you had a Google cardboard. Actually, it was, anyway, I saw you, and you did a twirl, and you seem to be having so much fun. I want to be like, I want to experience what she's experiencing. And I think that, part of what VR is, we bring our experiences and what we've gone through into it. And I think for you, like every time you go in, you just have that sense of like progress, or like, here's this thing I thought I couldn't do that I'm now doing. And I think that's part of like that, why that smile on your face was there.
Yeah, it brought back the quality of my life.
Wow.
It brought it back. It reinforced it, and it's keeping me well. It's the exercise I can do. I'm not about to go out and jog. I walk a little on the treadmill, but for the most part, all of my workout is in virtual reality. And having been bedridden, I gained 10, 15-ish pounds, which in the last maybe 8 months or so I've lost.
Wow.
So I'm back to a healthy weight.
Wow.
Back fitting in my clothing. Yeah. So that, again, mentally that'll get you there too.
Yeah. And I know as people that even follow technology, it's, we like think of like these are use cases that can be done, but to actually hear someone say that VR actually did this, it's, it's weird because you think I would be like, I expected this to happen. Of course it made you better, but that's not where the brain goes. It just doesn't, I didn't expect that at this current level where we are, and we're just starting. Yeah. So I can't imagine once doctors, actually, and researchers spend more time on this to find out even better ways to help out other diseases and disabilities.
Right.
It's
I wonder
really
how long before someone gets the first official doctor's prescription for a VR system.
Ooh, there you go.
watch out, insurance companies.
Pre-existing virtual conditions.
I mean, you think about all the different things that it could apply to, if instead of coming into the office and whatnot, I mean, telepresence certainly saves money, so who knows, telemedicine, this could be the new push.
Well, I have to get an MRI next week, just one of my regular oncology follow-ups, and when I go in there, they'll give me earbuds, and can choose sometimes to listen to, there's usually one or two choices.
Right.
The Beatles, or I think I said earlier, Johnny Carson's Greatest Hits or something, some jokes. But I can see in time from now where visually, if I can just be taken out of there, away, or
Right.
a lot of the doctor's offices and in the hospitals, when you lay in the bed, they'll put a picture from a calendar up on the wall. So,
Right.
you've got this field of flowers because you're staring at the freaking ceiling. Sorry. But that's what we do. We put a calendar picture there, and that's how good it is. And all of a sudden, I've got a Vive on.
Right.
And that really blew the calendars away. So I can see if everything from MRIs to leg waxes to
Wow.
Facing any fear and any pain.
The whole spectrum.
The whole
Yeah,
spectrum. For
Wow.
just, anything that is uncomfortable. And the progress is amazing. That's the part. I could have thought it would have made a difference, but I didn't think it would make this much of a difference. Like, if we started this early, we wouldn't have a motorized bed.
And I think the creators of Job Simulator and Space Pirate Trainer never thought that their game would make such a difference.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be floored when they listen to this.
Oh, well, I want to thank them. I can't, it's my life. I owe my physical life and a lot of my mental health.
Wow.
Coming back to whoever created those things. I'm really over my head. It was
Right.
bought as a toy for my son, and it's been a miracle to me.
Yeah, it's a testament to just like the possibilities for this technology. And again, just what's next?
Right.
And I think that's a question we're going to continue to explore on this podcast, as it comes out. And so, Josh, do you have any closing comments?
Well, one thing I want to share is the intensity of the virtual reality. You really can be transported somewhere else. One of the platforms of the Vive system has this place where you're way up above a planet in space, like miles above a planet. And you can get to the edge, literally the edge, and step off of that edge physically. And I had to convince myself that I could physically step off. I was actually in my living room. I wouldn't fall to my... But the strength of that immersion is so strong. You can feel the fear of I mustn't step over that.
Right.
It can be so real. It's incredible.
Right.
Wow.
And I highly recommend the experience.
Right. It could be very frightening, and it can be very reassuring.
Yes.
On one hand, if I can lean my head in and my forehead feels cold, that tells me my brain, I'm experiencing phantom pains. We can change that possibly with being immersed in this.
Right.
I did. So it's been a great thing for an entire family.
Yes, it has.
Wow. Yeah, that's just incredible. Neil, do you have any comments there? I'm speechless at this point.
No, I just want to thank you for sharing your story. I mean, it really shows what this new platform is. It's more than gaming. It's more than entertainment. It's more than training or a tool for enterprise or a lot of the things we've heard. It's a way to change people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way I got well. It's absolutely was my path to wellness. So thank you. I'm so thrilled that all of you that are involved in it and to be able to share that.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for coming on and taking the time out to come in and talk with us to tell your story again. Like, it's again, I think it's just like emotionally, I'm gonna be pretty happy for the next couple of days after hearing your story.
Good, and I hope other people are, and I hope they just get yourself in that helmet. If you know anybody who is having pain.
And what do you say, to someone that is in the spot where you feel like you were, where you didn't feel like you could get better?
There is no place worse to go, really. At that point, you can the prescription medication isn't helping. Not leaving the house, it's not going to. It can't make anything worse. If you could just go into it with that idea that trying it is not damaging. But on the flip side, it's incredibly, incredibly empowering. So it won't hurt anything, but it'll certainly help leaps.
I'm Neil Gupta.
And I'm Craig Herndon.
You can find any info in the show notes. Please subscribe on iTunes to listen again, and we'll catch you in this reality
or the next.
Thank you so much for listening. We would like to keep sharing more about VR and AR with you, so please consider a few dollars to our Patreon, linked in the show notes. The Virtuality podcast is produced by Jason Parks and music by Rachel Dazinski. This podcast is in collaboration with Boston VR and Boston AR. Monthly meetups and events can be found on meetup.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at VirtualityCast and learn more at our website, virtuality.show.